Welcome to N2 the Chatterverse, where two gents share their 2 cents on pop media. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I survived voting.
Good job. Good job.
Of course, I did it last week.
I was going to say, you did it early, though.
Yeah, I did the early voting.
That's not a bad thing. I went today, and, like, it's funny. In my neighborhood, we have 2 voting sites, like, literally down the street from each other. And one location seems to feed, like, a very small amount of people, and the other location feeds everybody else.
Are you under the everybody else category?
No, I'm in the small one.
Oh, wow. Way to be elite. That's not how I thought that was going to go at all.
No. I had figured this out when I was a kid, and my parents, I've been registered to vote under their house since I was 18, because it is really that different. Like, you could go and stand in line for hours based on where my grandmother lives. And we're all in the same neighborhood. But just on that, where you cut the block, everyone goes to this one. My parents go to this one, and we're talking in and out. So I went in today. I took Juno with me. We were there for maybe 10 minutes, and that's because they wanted to find candy to give to Juno. That's what took so long. Like, it was longer to find candy than it was for me to vote. So, yes.
Well, I'm not a fan of people trying to buy votes.
Juno's not allowed to vote, so it's cool. She can get candy for a few more years.
And yeah, I wasn't talking about that.
Huh?
It was heartstrings, buddy.
I didn't care.
I don't like a certain thing because my daughter didn't like it.
Listen. I didn't care about that. Although no, she was campaigning real hard.
Yeah, there you go.
She was telling me that I should vote for Sheriff Brown, and I was like, "You're so cute," and Sherrod, and she's like, "What?" And I was like, "It's Sherrod Brown, not Sheriff."
Well, it's fine.
Well, whatever. Still him.
She got the Brown part
She
right.
did.
It starts with an S.
And she was very specific, like, don't do the other guy. I don't like him. And I'm like, do you know him? She was in a place. I loved it. Real quick, before we jump into this episode, I saw a video. It was on TikTok, so take it with a grain of salt. But thinking about how we were talking before in a previous episode about how Disney kind of failed at celebrating aspects of Star Wars when they could have. 25th anniversary of Episode 1 being one of them. And in this little video thing, they brought up a very interesting concept that apparently was supposed to happen, but George Lucas changed it at the end. And it is that Obi-Wan was actually supposed to be Qui-Gon. That the name Obi-Wan Kenobi belonged to the older teacher, and that Qui-Gon was the younger one. Everything still happens like it does, where Obi-Wan dies and Qui-Gon beats Darth Maul and then takes on Obi-Wan's name to move forward. And so when he does this, fast forward to, Episode 4, A New Hope, and Luke is like, I'm looking for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he's like, that's a name I haven't heard in a very long time, because it's not actually his name either. It is one that he assumed because he was Qui-Gon Jinn the whole time. And I guess apparently George said no, he thought it would be too confusing, which I thought was weird.
But who came up with the idea?
I don't know. They didn't get into that part.
So
it was part of...
that's the problem.
Okay.
Because it wasn't George that came up with the idea.
Shots fired. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, because as an explanation, that is very weak.
Just go off of actions.
Yeah.
This seems to be the way he works.
If it wasn't his,
you just go back to what Star Wars was gonna be.
Yeah.
And it didn't end up being that way because all the people around. One, he didn't have control over everything, right. And he had a wife who said, "That's poorly written.
Do it again,
and
do it again, or give it to someone else."
And then, you hear about the rough cuts and how they went in and re-edited it and changed names and all that kind of stuff on the fly. And, his vision, you're seeing more and more of his vision with the special editions.
I can see that.
Where people are like, these are awful.
These aren't.
And there's a reason for that.
We don't love these.
Yeah. This is where I go, George created something.
Yes.
But it's not 100% his.
I can totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's his it was his from a standpoint that he owned it.
Yes.
But it wasn't his from the standpoint of this is his vision.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of cooks that came into the kitchen And again, I put it in the same category as a telephone. If you put, Alexander Graham Bell and gave him an iPhone, he'd be like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "It's better than what you what you did." That's what it is. But yeah, I thought it was weird too because I was like, don't we first get introduced to Obi-Wan with a different name? He's Old Ben Kenobi. And so, yes, sure, Ben Kenobi sounds like Obi-Wan Kenobi, but it's two different names, and we're supposed to like totally accept it, and we do. Why would it be any different to have Qui-Gon Jinn take on the name of his master who dies?
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with that. So I thought that was a missed opportunity because I'm like, that would have been really cool. But I digress. We are going to talk about the aftermath of Agatha All Along, and we're going to put it in a bigger context of MCU TV shows. But overall, how did you feel about this one? This was, what is it, 9 episode?
9
show?
episodes.
Okay.
It was the first Marvel show that felt like a TV show. Like each episode felt like an episode as opposed to part of a movie.
What do you think is the difference here? Like why now did that actually work? Because we're talking, how many different shows we have?
We have
at this
11 shows.
11
if
shows.
you count What If.
You got to count What If. You have to, because it's out there. 11 shows, and finally they have an understanding of how to tell a story in a TV show format. Were they just jumping the gun before?
Well, I guess WandaVision kind of had that feeling of being episodic, but also you had to have those 3 together, or there was the same 3 episodes, first 3 episodes.
Were literally the same.
And you know what? Now I think about it, I take it back. There were times when it felt episodic, but there were also times when it just like it's part of a bigger story.
You're talking about
WandaVision.
Yeah.
I think the default is JPEG. I think that JPEG wanted all this content, so they kick it out as quick as possible. They probably didn't have time to have a writer's room.
I can see that.
Or a Bible to go by.
Right.
And I think with this show, we're seeing what happens when Iger goes,
do it right.
Just do it the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
And Feige's like, I've been waiting for that.
Yeah.
This
felt like old Marvel, like old MCU to me, because you're talking about a character, Agatha, who, when it comes to comic book fandoms, she's less than a Z level character. Like, I don't know. I've never seen anyone say that Agatha Harkness is their favorite comic book character ever.
Right.
Because she's always like a background figure, if anything, at that.
Right.
So the idea of taking this background character and making a story that was compelling, interesting, and people tuned in, that felt like old MCU stuff where you're like, hey, we're going to make a movie about Iron Man. And initially we're like, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah, why are you starting with Iron Man? And then you're like,
you see it,
no,
like,
that was actually really good.
That was a really good
yeah.
movie. Like, okay, all right, cool. And you're like, and then we're going to do Hulk. You're like,
didn't you just do Hulk?
Yeah, you're like, we see you guys did that. I don't know, but all right, if that's what you feel like. So I think that already was a win to me, because I'm not going to say that at the beginning I was gung-ho about this show. I thought it was weird to give this platform to Agatha because she is such a non-essential character. But then I'm like, okay, maybe this is a return to form. And I think overall, over these 9 episodes, they kind of proved it and then still built something bigger out of it. Now, when it comes to the story of Billy and Wiccan, were you super familiar with his character from the comics at all?
I knew that there was a character named Wiccan.
Okay, all right. Funny enough, that wasn't his original name. His original name was Asgardian, because when they first introduced the idea of the Young Avengers, they were all characters that are taking on other Avenger identities, right? So you had Iron Lad, you had Patriot, you had Asgardian. So the thought was that Billy was more Thor-like than Scarlet Witch. It wasn't until later that we found out that he's Scarlet Witch's kid, and so that changed things a bit, and then he becomes the character Wiccan. I was not sad that they skipped that part. I am curious, though, if it is going to come back around, if any other future presentation of the character exists. He does seem to be very much so in his Wiccan phase style and all that stuff, which I think is very cool. But I'm just curious if they're going to go at any sort of multiversal Secret World or Secret Wars kind of setup where we see him in a different identity for any sort of reason, because that's how it started in the books.
I think my problem with that would be the same problem I have with everything that translates from TV to movies.
There's some things that just
it's the whole, well, you have to watch
everything. That is true.
Yeah, it's one thing to watch the movies, but it's another thing to, I'm sorry, you have to subscribe to this in order to know what's going on.
That is so. In that regard, when it comes to the Young Avengers, pretty much all of the presentation of characters that we would associate with them have all been from shows.
Yep.
So would that be a problem for them to go into a Young Avengers movie, considering in that same aspect, like pretty much all of the characters all come from shows?
I guess that would depend on if that movie is released in theaters or on Disney Plus.
Which would you rather?
I would rather it be on Disney Plus.
Okay. All right.
Because that's where the characters are.
That's how you build it.
Yeah.
And then once it's released as a Disney Plus feature or featurette or whatever, special presentation, would you then be like, okay, cool, now you can go into the movies if you have like that sort of connectivity? Or is that too complicated?
Once again, you have to watch Disney Plus in order
to do it.
Yeah. And this may be one of the failings of the Marvels, because two of the three characters,
right,
if you didn't have Disney Plus,
you didn't know who they were.
You didn't know who they were. If you didn't watch WandaVision,
right,
if you didn't watch Ms. Marvel, those two characters right there.
Right. And literally when the show or the movie is built around three characters, and two of which you need that prior experience with to have any context of who they are, that's a big deal.
I think it's part of the failing. I don't think it's a total failing of the movie. I don't think it was a great movie to begin with, but
more than fair. The Witch's Road, as a context of storytelling, was a very wonderful puzzle in Agatha All Along. Was there any point before the big reveal that you figured out what it was or what it wasn't for the characters?
I didn't. I knew it was a great song.
Yeah.
And it was Follow the Yellow Brick Road.
Right.
So I didn't think it was, what it turned out to be. The way it was presented was great, and what it ended up being is also great.
I agree. There was something about like the literal magic of it, where when it is revealed, it's a classic sort of movie moment reveal. I'm talking about like Usual Suspects level reveal, Sixth Sense reveal, where you go, oh my God, oh wow. The biggest thing about it though was that there was, because of the, we'll say, location change, you never could have figured that out.
Yeah.
And that's what made it work. And I was totally okay with it. I didn't feel like there was like, oh, they pulled the wool over my eyes or anything like that. It was really good storytelling with the reveal. Of the practitioners on the road, did you have any favorites?
No?
I
don't think so.
Okay. All right. Was it Layla? Leah? I can't say her name. The fortune teller. She was my favorite of the bunch. There was something about the context of the story for her that I thought was the most interesting, especially when it came to past, present stories colliding. I really liked the way that they did that.
No, I enjoyed that part of the story when it's like they're taking bits and pieces of it all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it wasn't too much of that.
Yeah. Because that could ruin the whole thing.
Yeah, because it also just feels too much like Pulp Fiction.
Dang, I didn't even think about it like that, but that's true.
Yeah, told out of out of turn.
Yeah. Any standout actors in this one?
Just the obvious one.
I mean, come on, say it. I just want to hear you say it.
I enjoy Death. Let's put it that way.
Oh no, Miss Aubrey Plaza. Yes.
You're such a mark.
I am, and I am okay with it. I am fully okay with it.
She was fine, and then he finds out she's Puerto Rican.
She got finer. You know what I'm talking about? What I'm talking about. What I love, though, is this presentation of Death and what this might mean in the greater MCU, because it's not the obvious thing, right? We had the entire Infinity Saga, and we just knew, like, oh, we're going to get Death introduced, and it never was as a character until now. and taking Thanos off the board, there's only one other character that I know is so very keenly tied into death, and I would definitely be interested in seeing an interaction between these two characters, and that is obviously Deadpool. So if you have Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool and Plaza's death, I would be very interested in what that interaction would be like.
I think it's funny that you think Thanos is off the table.
If they try to bring it back, it's going to be weird because the whole Infinity Saga, the Infinity Gauntlet story, had her as the key piece of the whole thing.
Right, but in an alternate universe, that's probably the story.
Oh, you think we're going to get like that?
I don't think it in depth.
Okay.
I think we're going to get...
Like, that's why
I think we're going to get Brolin back as Thanos.
I believe
and
that.
it may be just a cameo.
Okay.
But
that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I just don't see Ryan Reynolds.
No.
I think that's too serious of a storyline.
Okay. All right. I can't disagree with that. I can just say that I really want that attempt, though.
Yeah. I mean, I get it.
Yeah. But okay. All right. Overall, if you had to rate it 1 through 10, what are you giving Agatha?
You know what? I think it's probably my second favorite show.
That's pretty good. Second favorite of the MCU bunch.
Yeah.
What's number 1 for you?
Falcon Winter Soldier.
Okay.
I really like the way those two interact together.
Mm-hmm.
I can forgive, Sam figuring out the shield in an afternoon.
Yeah, man. You just listen. That Louisiana air is all you need, man. You solve everything.
But those two work really well together.
Yeah.
And then I thought it brought depth to what was her name? The one that ended up being basically the bad guy in the end. Sharon.
Oh,
Carter.
okay. Yeah. That's an unresolved storyline too, isn't it?
Yeah. The Zemo stuff.
That was okay.
It was okay.
Yeah.
But
not bad. Not bad.
That's probably my number 1.
That one is definitely in my top 3. Unlike you, I love What If for the examination of things that didn't happen. But you made a really good point about the failings of What If, and I totally agree with your assessment. Like, there are some absolute failings, but there are some things in there that they were good enough ideas that it made me like reconsider the MCU itself. Like, what is it when Nebula recreates or is a part of the Nova Corps, and I'm like, now that's a really interesting idea. Because it goes back to say, okay, if the Nova Corps got destroyed and Nebula has had a change of heart in terms of her interactions and things like that, why couldn't she have done that? Why wouldn't she have done that?
But you're getting back to what If is. All right, that's the origins of What If.
Absolutely.
It's a self-contained story,
right?
And tells you something that
you never considered.
Yeah. The problem is that these stories that they're telling are too condensed, and they don't have time to breathe.
Right.
Now, if they would have taken there's like 8 episodes or whatever. If they would have gone with 10 episodes and do 2-parters, then you would have had 4 storylines you could have told, and then at the end bring it all together. And I'm not a huge fan of the connective part.
I'm not either, actually.
But if they tell stories good enough, then I'm fine with it.
Right.
But the idea, and this is where I go against the grain of how I feel about all the Marvel and DC stuff, is that the comic books are the comic books, and the TV, movie, whatever it is that iteration. My problem with What If is that this is how I grew up with it.
Right.
And I always liked the stories, and they were self-contained stories. There was occasional,
double ups.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
Which is fine.
Right.
But this too much to me was like, we have to bring it all together, and that's... You don't have to do that.
Right.
Like, it's fine that they do that in the movies and everything, but, like, look at DC. Do you really want Pattinson's Batman to be part of the Justice League?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
I like it the way it is. It's just like, And as much as, the Joker isn't the Joker,
Sure.
you don't want that to be part of it either.
No. And you make a really good point, too, because what if errantly informed what we expected was supposed to happen in Doctor Strange 2, where we're like, oh, there's that zombie Strange, and so that's from this episode of what, and you're like,
Right.
no, it's not that at all.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason why that became a factor is because they started to do this, bridged storytelling that's like, oh no, we're going to build off of all this and it's actually going to create a bigger story. And you go, well, if you're going to do that, it's going to shape right back into the MCU. And so when it doesn't, you go, oh, well, that's unfun. Like, why do we take the time to build this? So to those ends, like, I 1,000,000% agree with you.
Well, and I don't disagree with What If being a series, because if I've never read a comic book, or if I've never read What If,
right,
I'd probably be one of those people like, yeah, this is a really great idea.
Cool ideas.
Yeah.
Cool ideas.
And I'm like, I remember watching the first one,
Yeah.
and I was just like, I was disappointed because the way it was. And I talked to somebody about it. I thought it was it was a good starting point. It was a good explanation of what was going on. I'm like, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
It was made for you. It wasn't made for me.
There you go. I will say that my biggest complaint of What If, outside of the Bro Thor storyline, I hated that one. I hate that episode where he shows up to party. It's stupid. But the zombie one is the one that disappointed me the most. At the start, like, I thought the rest of how it played out was fun and fine. What I did not like was that the zombie virus came from being in the quantum verse by Wasp. I did not like that. What I actually wanted to, again, pull from things that actually, like, could have occurred was that it was in Civil War, and the whatever bio-viral thing that what's his name had stolen. And, the whole goal was like, don't let it fall. It'll kill all these people. And, Widow and Falcon, whatever, stop him. I wanted it to be that. I wanted it to be like, they actually dropped it. And when it cracked open, this is what happened. And you go, oh my God, this is what Civil War just totally avoided. That's awesome. But to make it the quantum zone was like, it's still a threat. Like, that could potentially still happen. That's not what I want from What If. What If is supposed to be where this is no longer on the table. Right. For stories, because this choice changed everything, and that wasn't about choice change, and that let me down.
All right, so what's in your bottom two?
My bottom two would have to be I'm gonna say it, Moon Knight and Secret Invasion are my bottom two. I'm not a Moon Knight fan, never was, and I did not find this show interesting enough to be a part of the greater MCU. Like, I forgot. Like, as we were talking about these different shows, and you had the list up, and I'm like, oh yeah, Moon Knight was one of those. Totally, like, it's not even that I don't like it; it's that I forgot about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great.
Yeah.
I think I like the multiple personality aspect of it, even though at the end was the reveal of the third identity. But to me, that wasn't even like the bottom.
Yeah.
The bottom for me, the bottom is Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
But right behind it is the one that they dropped all 5 episodes at
Echo.
Yeah, and
Echo.
and that tells you right there that they didn't like it.
They didn't. And I guess part of my thing for that one, I have to give it more grace, is I know too many players behind the scenes, and maybe that's a failing for me as a critic or reviewer. Being at all associated with anybody behind the scenes will taint my impression. It absolutely will. I know David Mack. I got to meet the actress that plays Maya. She was very, very sweet. Met her family. So I have kind of a guilty sort of like, I'm not going to hold you as harshly. Do I think the story was great? No, it would definitely be on my bottom 5. But I won't make it my bottom 2 because I feel like I don't like other things, even on a personal level, more. What else is in your bottom?
Hawkeye.
Really? Hawkeye's kind of midway for me. So, okay. All right.
Well, you know what? I take that back.
Yeah.
She-Hulk is.
I knew She-Hulk was definitely in your bottom 5. I knew that for a fact.
But Hawkeye is not too far behind that.
Yeah, because with Hawkeye, again, it was almost tiptoeing into the forgettable place for me.
Yeah, and that's true.
Yeah,
but the part about it that I really enjoyed was the how all of the combat has affected him.
Yes.
And I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was really well done.
I could have done without Kingpin being in there because it's not the same Kingpin.
True.
And I don't know, just the character, just.
I mean, when Hawkeye is not the best part of his own show, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Yelena being in there upstaged him every time, respectfully, but she did,
And then the biggest problem with She-Hulk is not the casting.
No.
It's the fact that it's a comedy that's not funny.
Can I ask you a weird question? This is like a throwback. Like, did you find shows like Ally McBeal funny?
I would say at least humorous at best.
Okay. Because I did feel like it was a diet version of an attempt.
Well,
of
and
that.
that's
And maybe that's definitely the problem.
But I think the biggest problem, like once again, if you're going to make a comedy,
make it funny,
or attempt to make it funny.
Yeah.
But it did. The Walk of Shame was great.
The Walk of Shame was fantastic. But that's again.
That's the only thing I could think of.
But when that happens and it's not the star of the show, that becomes part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because the greatest thing that happens in it is because this other character showed up and saved you. And that's not the way these shows should be built. Like that's a failing.
Which I will tell you right now.
Yeah.
Daredevil is the best Marvel show.
Without question. Yes, and yes. For all aspects. Like even allowing for not loving the spin-offs that directly came off of it, like Punisher, but Punisher on Daredevil, fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. I love it. That's a really good point. Obviously in my top 3, Falcon and Winter Soldier would definitely be in the top 3. I think Wanda would make the top 5. The one that I think would shock people that I didn't love is season 2 of Loki. Now, I like season 1.
Well, I didn't put that up there.
But
like I didn't put season 2.
Yeah, you did do season 2s, which I respect. But like I did not really like season 2 at all.
I get that.
Yeah. Season 1 was fun. But that was it.
Yeah, because we got all the different Lokis, and it felt like he was doing something, but once again, it didn't feel like a TV show.
Right.
And I would put that as my number 3.
Okay.
Probably.
All right.
And I liked WandaVision. I just didn't like it as much as everybody else. Like I see a 92 and an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't agree with that at all.
It's
I like if we're going pass fail, sure.
Yeah.
But those scores to me are too high.
Let's rationalize it. Was it people being forgiving because of COVID? Coming off of COVID, they're like...
I mean, it could be, but if you look at all the other scores, they're aligned with that.
They kind of are.
Except, like, Agatha, to me, is a little weird because it's 83% on both sides.
That's true.
And I think it's a better show than that. And that could be... they didn't like the character to begin with.
Right.
I didn't like the character to begin with, but I like the show.
The show good because it won me over, like for sure.
I can agree with, and this is why I picked the first season because it's, they take the average of both. Like the 92 and 90%, I can agree with that on Loki. I can also agree with Falcon and Winter Soldier being in the 80s. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with Moon Knight.
Being in the 80s like that.
Been mid 80s.
Yeah.
Secret Invasion, I would agree with. You know what? Ms. Marvel, I think it wasn't bad. It just wasn't for me.
Right.
98% critic, okay. 80% is probably closer where I would put it.
Right.
With the rest of them. But the 79% for She-Hulk, the 32%.
I mean, that's a huge disparity.
Right. And I agree I agree more with the 30% than I do the 79.
Now,
because to me, it's not a pass.
How do you feel about Echo being 70-60? Like, in terms of scale of story, was Echo less less divisive than She-Hulk? Because I know that there was a lot of, we'll call it, cultural, social pushback on some of the concepts of She-Hulk, whether or not it was anti-men or anything like that. Do you think that Echo kind of towed the line better?
Well, I think the thing going for Echo was the fact that they dropped all five at once. And if people were talking about it, they were talking about it for a blip.
Right. And so there wasn't time for
it. Wasn't it wasn't the whole cultural thing. Yeah. And it still had the same Kingpin in it.
True.
I just wish the character was better.
Okay.
The writing on it. I don't
have
a problem with it.
That I didn't like.
What's that?
They gave her powers, and that I didn't like.
Yeah, and I think that's, the one thing that I like about Hawkeye so much, though I still think Hawkeye's a mutant, because no one can take a shot like that in the first Avengers.
And get up from it.
Well, when he pulls back and he's not even looking.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, come on.
Come on, man.
When he says, he played a round of golf, 18 holes, shot 18. Yeah.
I don't miss.
I think he's a mutant.
Okay. All right. I can get with that.
And if he's not, that's disappointing.
That's fair. That's very fair. I would like for Echo to be redeemed with an interaction with Daredevil. That's where she came from in the books.
Sure.
And I think that's an interesting point of view too, because here we have her getting her own show after being a guest star in somebody else's show, but comic book wise, that's not necessarily the person that she is most known for being associated with. So there's a lot of interesting things I think.
Well,
with that.
I'll put it to you this way: did you care less about Tony Stark when he was in Avengers or when he was in Civil War?
Did I care less?
No.
Yeah, no. He was just Tony.
It was he was there.
Yeah.
And you were glad that he was there.
Yeah.
And it could be that a redemption for Echo is less is more. Especially if it's written well.
Yeah. The character Maya Lopez is an interesting character, but she's got to be written well because there's a lot of nuance to her. So, yeah, I can totally
and I'll say this, when it comes to Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm going to miss the Winter Soldier not being in Captain America.
I think he's got to show up.
If he is, it's only a cameo.
I know, but he's got to be there. Like, considering the setup of things that are supposed to happen with Thunderbolts, he's got to be there. Please don't make me wrong, because their chemistry was fantastic.
What do you want to put on that?
No, I'm not that stupid. I'm not that hopeful. No. I'm just saying. Like,
you don't want to put anything on that.
Heck no. Okay, no, I take that back. I will put on that. Let's do a giveaway. We'll do a giveaway of something. I will give away a Geeking hoodie to one of our subscribers if he is not in the upcoming Captain America Brave New World.
But if he's in a post-credit scene, that's fine.
Absolutely fine. I don't think it'll be that, though. I think it'll be like in actual
movie time. This is where it's not fine. Yeah. If the post-credit scene is actually a scene from Thunderbolts.
Yeah, no. That doesn't count. That's cheating. That is absolutely cheating. I will not count that. I'm saying that he's got to have some presentation in the actual movie itself. I'm saying that. I'm going for it. And I will give away a Geeking hoodie. You get to pick the color, and we will give it to one of our subscribers.
Okay.
There it is. Whew, don't make me wrong. Or else somebody gets a free hoodie. I'm cool with that too. Absolutely. Actually, no, it won't be a Geeking hoodie. It'll be an N2 the Chatterverse hoodie. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll make it right.
Good save.
Thank you. I saw that. I think that this was a really good show, and I do think that it sets the bar really high for the upcoming shows that are supposed to come out on Disney Plus. I hope that those shows are ready, particularly like shows like Ironheart, which are supposed to have been done for like 2 years already. If they didn't do Ironheart like they did Echo and just drop it all at once, then it better be good.
Does it worry you that you haven't heard anything about Ironheart?
1,000,000%. Yeah. Because
didn't you think it was dead until they showed?
I did.
Yes,
I literally did.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, that's still coming out?
Yeah.
Like,
right. At
Really?
least because with Daredevil, you heard.
Yes.
Like they scrapped
Continuously,
everything. Yeah.
we heard about
And
things.
that gives me hope for that, at least.
Okay.
It also gives me hope for everything going forward.
Yeah.
That they were willing to scrap everything they'd already done.
Yes. To make right
Yeah,
decisions.
and to spend the money. Well, they spent the money poorly to begin with.
Right.
This sounds like a Lucas thing.
Well,
They spent the money poorly, and then they right the ship. But here's the problem with that: they're not going to recoup any of that money that they spent.
no.
They weren't going to anyway.
Right. But now they're really not.
Now
gonna.
they're really not going
Yeah.
to. But
Although, well, let me ask this: is it possible that through the success of this show and the announcement of the slate of things that's supposed to come to Disney Plus, that the idea is that this is going to drive membership to Disney Plus, and hope that people do come back for it? Because there's a lot of like really wild things from that bunch. Was it kicking things off with Spider-Man? I think that's an interesting move because I wouldn't have expected that to not be a Sony project at all. Like that freshman year thing, definitely didn't expect that. So is it possible that they're trying to drive or do a membership drive to Disney Plus through this showcase? I mean, because we're talking.
well, yeah, but that's the point of every show.
I mean, true, but like.
But I don't think it's going to be to the point that it would even break even with this show. This is one of those things where they're going to have to take the loss.
Okay.
They'll have to
All
take
right.
the L.
Yeah.
No matter. You know what? There's a movie coming out.
Yeah.
Where the studio is going to have to know that they have to take an L, but as long as they know that it's a good movie,
Then it's gonna be
then
fine.
they know that they're building off of something, and that movie's called Superman.
I can get that. I can get that.
Because of everything that's gone wrong
Yeah.
with the DCEU,
Right.
there are going to be so many people that don't know the difference.
And they just gotta go in.
Yeah, they have to go
Anyway.
in. They have to go in knowing that if they get those high numbers when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes,
Right.
and the telling tale will be, let's say it starts off with $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
If the drop is less than 50%, they know that they've got a hook in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess what dropped just less than 50% this past weekend?
What?
Venom.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Venom will probably end up breaking even, maybe making some money, and it's making it all overseas.
Of course. But wow.
But domestically, it did like a 49% drop.
Okay. Okay.
And that's a big thing. That's a big
yeah,
deal because if you usually get the 50 anywhere from 50 to 62% drop is almost normal, depending
Right.
on how much the first weekend was.
Right.
But you're getting good word of mouth when
If
it's less than
not-
50%.
Yeah. No. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Oh, that's so cool. We will be back with a little bit more commentary on the industry structure and how we think this will affect the entertainment design of both the MCU, Disney Plus, and all that for 2025. Because I do think that there are some big changes in the works, and I would love to get your thoughts on that. But we want to thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of N2 the Chatterverse. Once again, I'm Victor Dangerous, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I really hope you voted.
You better have. You better have voted.